All right, welcome back into Reiter's Block here on CBS Sports HQ. I'm Bill Reiter. We're now here daily from Los Angeles, California. Another great show planned for you. Sacramento King and two-time NCAA champion Corey Brewer is going to be on the program. Russell Westbrook keeps making history, and I'm 1-0. I'm on a heater. I got another big bet of the day for you and more starting right now.
Play the century by finding Mamadi and Mamadi being ready to shoot.
If you learn to use it right, the adversity, it will buy you a ticket to a place you couldn't have gone any other way.
We are family, first of all. We stick together every single time, even during the tough times.
Harper, the blow by, sticks it, and it's over. Anything can happen in March.
Came out and battled the whole entire 40 minutes for him, and I know he's happy. I know he's proud of us.
Not my biggest team, not my strongest team. They're mentally as tough as any team I've had, and I've had some tough teams.
And Michigan State is headed to Minneapolis.
All right, and then there were four, and over the next few days, we will have you covered every angle that you want as a sports fan as the Final Four gets underway in Minneapolis here on CBS Sports HQ. For the next few minutes, though, want to focus on some of the interesting narratives and storylines that are emerging. There are two clear ones in each of the two games, and we'll start with Virginia versus Auburn and this notion, in very different ways, of redemption at stake for each of these programs. For Virginia, obviously, they are coming off last year's heartbreaking brutality of an embarrassment against UMBC when they not only became the first and only one seed to ever lose to a 16 in the opening round of the NCAA tournament, they got their doors blown off. And so for Tony Bennett and this crew, this run, and not just the Final Four, they need to cut down those nets in Minneapolis next week, isn't just about the championship and the goal, but erasing away the stain and the embarrassment of the worst showing relative to expectations in the history of the tournament. We had Kyle Guy on the program, Virginia player, a few weeks ago, and he had a pretty positive attitude about that moment last year and what it could mean going forward.
The greatest thing about this season is we've made history because no one's ever lost to a 16 seed. That means no one's ever won after or lost after. So we have the best record ever after losing to a 16 seed. I think we keep that in the back of our mind that we did lose to them, but we're just trying to move on from it, never forget it. Helps us have a chip on our shoulder and stay focused.
Tony Bennett teams have always been remarkable defensively. It's interesting how many of these Final Four teams that are alive are great defensively. This year, Virginia's a great offensive team, too. And after shaking off some obvious nerves in that opening round game, it was only a half, but it looked like they might lose to a 16 again. Virginia's found a way to persevere in some close games, particularly against Purdue, able to force that to overtime and to move on. And if Virginia can do it, if Kyle Guy is right, if they can become not just the first team as a one seed to lose to a 16, but then to follow up and set the standard for redemption by winning the whole thing, it will be one of the great storylines in sports in a long time. On the other side of the equation is a redemption story. Let's be honest, it's a little bit darker. Bruce Pearl will be the only coach in the history of the NCAA to get a show cause penalty, which is basically a scarlet letter. It was 3 years in his time at Tennessee, and follow that up with an NCAA championship. He's already gone further than anyone who's ever had that stigma put on him. We're not going to dive into what's right or wrong with the NCAA, but we are going to point out that it's hard to build a program when the NCAA has come after you. I talked to several big-time coaches over the last few months about that notion, and they said if the NCAA wants to get you, they're going to get you. They got Bruce Pearl, and the only way you can get back, as Frank Sinatra said, the real revenge is massive and ultimate success. And to do it, Pearl and his guys have absolutely overturned every expectation. They almost lost to New Mexico State early on in the tournament. and they had to go through 3 blue bloods to get here. Kansas beat them. UNC beat them. Kentucky and Cal beat them. So if Bruce Pearl can get past Virginia, get to that championship game on Monday, and find a way to win it, it won't just be one of the more surprising champions in a while. It will redefine Bruce Pearl's place in the game and give him a very different redemption story than the Virginia squad he's going up against. And the other game that I find fascinating from a narrative perspective, the only game that's left, Michigan State against Texas Tech. And there's a lot of reasons this is interesting. Not the best or most talented Michigan State team that Izzo's ever had, but he said they have the most will. And for Texas Tech, not just the best defensive rating team in the country, the best defensive team in the nation this year, one of the best of all time. And an interesting storyline that's emerging from that is the reality that you've got a coach in Tom Izzo who's on one end of the coaching legacy spectrum. He's already a Hall of Famer. He has the 5th most Final Four appearances of all time behind Coach K, Dr. Wooden, Dean Smith, and Roy Williams. That's pretty remarkable company. And yet Izzo only has the 1 championship. He's already a Hall of Famer, but this would solidify his place. He already has it, but increase the reality that he's one of the greats of all time. Now, I'm not trying to compare Chris Beard per se to Izzo or to Wooden or to Coach K. But I'll say this, early in his career, he's putting together the kind of resume that if it ends the way that Izzo's career is going to end, which is in the Hall of Fame, we'll look back and say, makes sense. Multi-time Big 12 Coach of the Year already. Took Little Rock, University of Arkansas Little Rock, not an easy program to build into a winner, into the tournament and won some games. And now has Texas Tech, a team a lot of folks doubted, on the verge of an NCAA championship early in his tenure at a Power 5 school. And what's interesting about this is that going up against the legend is Chris Beard, really as the personification of another legend. Bobby Knight was his mentor, Pat Knight after him. Beard got his start, his big break at Texas Tech as a low-level guy. So if you ever wondered what Bobby Knight, maybe minus the temper, what his approach would look like in 2019, Chris Beard is showing us it is a legacy-building moment for him. He's already on the betting books and the boards to be the Lakers coach at 66-1. He's got to get it done to go to that next level. And he talked about, for his guys, his squad, before the tournament started here on Writer's Block, that defense and their buy-in, a big part of what they can do.
The story here this year with our defense is our players have really bought in, led by our 4 seniors. They've really bought into the idea that defense is our DNA, it's our identity. We have to guard at a high level to be successful.
I'll say this too, I'm not going to dive into this too much. I also just love the notion as a guy from the Midwest, grew up in Big Ten country, went to school at a Big 12 school, it became an SEC school, that for all the talk about the ACC, and they were obviously strong, you have 4 schools from 4 different conferences and 4 different programs with remarkably different storylines and points on the compass in terms of their legacy and where these coaches are at in their careers and what a championship would mean. It's been an amazing tournament. The games have been remarkable. For sports fans like us, it's been one of the best that we've had in a long time, and it's just going to continue, not just because these teams are remarkable, but because each of them have something on the line that will matter years from now when we've forgotten who in 2019 actually won the tournament. It is a great time to be a sports fan. We're going to shift to a little NBA talk, though we'll ask Corey Brewer a good deal about the NCAA tournament. Played for those Billy Donovan teams at Florida, cut down the nets twice, 2-time NCAA champion, NBA champion with the Dallas Mavericks, and now part of the Sacramento Kings, a really interesting young team. Corey Brewer joins me on Writer's Block, now from Los Angeles, California, when we come back to CBS Sports HQ in just a minute. All right, welcome back into Los Angeles, California. This is Writer's Block on your home for streaming sports. I'm Bill Reiter. Before we get to Corey Brewer, just want to say this. It's our second show from Los Angeles, California. You can see behind me a little more sun than in New York City, and we're thrilled to have the program relocate back to the West Coast, where it started a few years ago, about a year before CBS Sports HQ launched. We've got some incredible guests and some really fun things planned for the weeks ahead to celebrate our return to the West Coast. So I hope you'll keep checking us out here at 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific time here in Los Angeles. Okay, so Corey Brewer, really interesting guy. What an incredible career. Played at Florida, as I'm sure you know, 2-time NCAA champion, played on those Billy Donovan teams. was on that Mavs team, didn't actually play in that finals, played a few times in the postseason run, but was a part of that Mavs team that beat the Heat all the way back in the 2011 finals when I was covering that Miami Heat team. Really interesting dude on a really interesting Sacramento Kings team, and he's ready now to make time for us. It was earlier in the day I was able to catch up with him, and here's the conversation. I think you'll enjoy it.
All right, Corey, so just read off your resume, two-time NCAA champion, member of that Mavs NBA championship team. You're with this really young and exciting Kings team. When you look back at your career, which is ongoing, what's the high? What's for you the biggest professional accomplishment?
Oh man, probably winning the world championship was probably the ultimate high. But it started winning those 2 national championships. That was amazing.
Those 2 championships, you guys won the first one, you and the guys under Billy Donovan, and you and your teammates, several of you, made the decision to come back for another year, even though at least 3 of you would have been probably first-round picks. When you look back at that decision and that gamble, how do you view it, and would you do it again if you had that choice in 2019?
It was a tough decision to make because we all would have been first-round picks, but, man, we were having so much fun, and we were all roommates, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I'd do it again.
What's the sweeter NCAA championship? What's the better net to cut down? The first one when you've never had it, or the second one when you get to some elite company?
They're both different. The first one was amazing because nobody expected us to do it. I think we came out, we were ranked 75th in the nation in the beginning of the year. And then the second one was nobody expected us to do it again. They didn't think nobody could go back to back. But we had the same starting 5, so we felt like nobody could beat us.
Yeah, it was an incredible run. We've obviously got 4 teams left in the tournament. Texas Tech team defensively is incredible. Michigan State, led by a guy that's already in the Hall of Fame on one side of the equation. On the other, you got Auburn against the only 1 seed that's left in Virginia. Do you have a strong sense of which team from here you think has the best chance to do what you guys did and bask in the glory of being the only team left standing?
Man, I really like Michigan State because Coach Izzo's, he's one of the best, but I'm an SEC guy, so I got to go with Auburn. I hope Bruce Pearl pulls it out.
Yeah, I get it. Got to root for those conferences. I want to ask you about Coach Donovan, highly celebrated at the NBA level earlier in the year. Fair or not fair talk that maybe he's on the hot seat now in Oklahoma City because things aren't going well there. You played for the guy. What's your perspective on Billy Donovan, the head coach at the NBA level, at the college level, just in general?
I think Coach is a great coach, man. He gets some criticism in OKC, but I think he's doing a good job. They still have Andre Robertson out. He's their defensive stopper. But he's doing what he can do, and I think they're going to be a scary team in the playoffs. But Coach can coach. He gets it done.
Corey, one of my favorite things to do is to come home after work, put on League Pass, and watch maybe not the best teams in the NBA, but those teams that you sense are going to be really good in a year or 2 or 3. And this year, it's the Sacramento Kings that I keep finding myself drawn to. Really fun young group. You guys play with a lot of joy and a lot of energy. Looks like, I know there's still a chance, looks like you're going to be just on the wrong side of the playoff picture, but a really impressive season. You're there. You're a veteran on that team. When do you think the Sacramento Kings will stop being a League Pass team because we want to see what they're going to be and they become the team that's in the mix this time of year?
I think it could be next year. Guys, we lost a lot of close games this year, and I think that's from being young. But I think next year we're going to know how to win those games. I hope I'm here. If I'm not, those guys are going to be good either way it goes because they have a lot of talent, and I think they learned a lot this year.
Corey, there was a report out in the last, 24 hours that one of the reasons Paul George felt comfortable sticking at where he's at and having a sense of the Lakers is that as his teammate, and you come from LA, you were able to give him the lay of the land of the Los Angeles Lakers. What did you share with him? What was that conversation about that led him to decide, you know what, I really like my life, my career, my opportunity with the Thunder?
I have no idea. Me and PG are pretty close, so I don't think I said anything bad towards the Lakers, but I don't know. Everybody's trying to make a story about it. Whatever he asked me, I was just truthful about it. I really can't make anybody's decision. He's a superstar, so they're not going to treat him the same as they treat me.
Was the message along the lines of, hey, every organization's different and the Thunder have a good thing going? Because it really was a surprise to a lot of us. Not just that he stayed, and I lived in Oklahoma City for a long time. I love that market, but that he stayed pretty quickly without taking meetings with other teams.
Yeah, it was just more like wherever you're gonna be happy at. I'm one of those people, like, if you're happy somewhere, be happy. If you don't think you're gonna be happy, you gotta make a decision for yourself.
You were with Philly earlier this year. There's a lot of interesting teams in the Eastern Conference, and try to get a sense of what their ceiling is going to be in the postseason. The Celtics, Toronto, what Milwaukee can do. They're really, really good this regular season. You've seen them up close and personal. What is Philly's upside? What is their best case scenario over the next few months?
I think Philly has a chance to get to the finals. If they're playing their best basketball, they can get to the finals, man. If Jimmy's playing like I know he can play, and Ben, he's focused, and if Joel is Joel, they're gonna be tough. And they added Tobias Harris, which makes them even more explosive.
All right, so Joel Embiid, one of my favorite players from a distance. I remember back in the day just rooting for him and Riri, and you can't get everything that you want, but that guy is funny. Who is the most interesting couple players, personalities you've encountered over your NBA career?
He's definitely one of the most interesting guys, just because his mentality. He's a funny guy, but he knows he can dominate, and he dominates whenever he wants. It's it's fun to watch. I play with JaVale McGee. He's a character, but he's not as crazy as people think he is. He's a great guy, and I think this year he's proven why he can still really play basketball.
One of the really cool things, Corey, about the league is there are so many young guys that are going to potentially be remarkable over the next 1 or 2 or 3 years. It's hard to forecast who's going to dominate the NBA, let's say 4 or 5 years from now. So your team excluded, because there's a couple guys on your team that could be in this distinction. I don't want to put you on the spot. If you had to guess, Cat, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, I'm forgetting guys, Luka Doncic, there's so many guys that I could throw out there. Who do you think are the young guys that, to your eye, have the chance to be the most special in a pretty special group, let's say 3 or 4 years from now?
Oh, man, Embiid's already one of the best dudes in the league, like, if not the best center for sure. You got to put him in. Like, I play with Ben Simmons. Like, he's only going to get better, and he's young. So both those guys, and they're on the same team, they could be the 2 best guys in the league on the same team.
That's scary. All right, Corey, really enjoyed the conversation. Really enjoyed watching you guys doing your thing this year. I'll be watching the last few games on League Pass. Congrats on all your success and continued success, and thanks for making time on the show.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Really, I enjoyed the conversation. I don't know what it is about Corey Brewer. I've always just liked that guy's game. And obviously, stud in college, had a really impressive career. And I'm telling you, as teams try to build into the next big thing, you got to have young talent. And the Kings are loaded with it. You heard me talking to Corey earlier today when I did the interview at my home about how much I love, just on a League Pass level, watching Bagley, watching De'Aaron Fox, Hield's been great. Buddy Hield's been really good. But having a guy like Corey Brewer who loves the game, whose career has taken a different turn, time comes for everybody, who's won at the highest levels, championships, college and the NBA, it has an impact. I know we're going to be focusing over the next few months on the teams like the Warriors and the Celtics and the Raptors who have a chance at an NBA championship, and even the teams that get their way, sneak their way into those final seeds for the playoffs. I'm telling you, as tough as the West is, and it's been a long time since we could say this, the Kings are going to be good down the line. It reminds me of watching the Sixers when they started to turn that corner. It reminds me of watching the Thunder back in the day when they had those 3 young guys in Durant, Harden, and Westbrook, and they were figuring it out. Maybe not that level, but the Kings are going to be maybe what Portland has been the last few years. I think in the years ahead, a really good team with some really strong talent. I enjoyed talking to Corey Brewer about it. Very cool of him to make some time. We obviously have more show for you. Russell Westbrook, speaking of Westbrook, 20, 20, and 20. That's not a video game statistical line. It's actually what he did last night in the Thunder's win. The guy is ridiculous. It has a personal connection to him and something he went through over the weekend. A lot of us did. He lost a friend. And so we're going to go inside the numbers on Russell Westbrook's dedicated game and moment of history for his friend when we come back to the program. Writer's Block here on CBS Sports HQ. All right, welcome back into Writer's Block here on CBS Sports HQ. There he is, Russell Westbrook, all he seems to do week after week is set some new mark for ridiculous statistical excellence. Last night, a 20-20-20 game. You know what we're doing here. We're going inside the numbers on Russ and what he's been about with that accomplishment. Let's start with the number 2. Westbrook became just the second player in the game's history with that 20-point, 20-assist, 20-rebound game. It's been over 51 years since, you guessed it, Wilt Chamberlain first achieved the feat. That is pretty rarefied air. Next up is number 5. In the first quarter of Tuesday's game, Westbrook piled up just 10 assists. He's just the 5th player with multiple 10-assist quarters over the past 20 seasons. We also have 31 on Inside the Numbers here. Russ now has 31 triple-doubles on this season, tying Wilt for the 3rd most triple-doubles in a single season. With 4 games left, Westbrook is currently 11 triple-doubles shy of his own record-setting moment in the 2016-17 season. Number 5 again. This is the 5th straight season Russ has led the league in triple-doubles. The fewest number of triple-doubles he's had in any of those years was 11 in 2014-15, and partly the reason is he missed 15 games that season. The dude can do it all. Next up is 29. Over the last 3 seasons, Russ has made up for about 29% of the league's triple-doubles. He's recorded 98 since the 16-17 season, while the rest of the NBA has accounted for 243 in that stretch. Finally, 135. Tuesday night marked Russ's 135th career triple-double. He is now just 3 back of Magic Johnson for the 2nd most all-time. For perspective, Russ has played in 89 fewer games than Magic, and there's also a more serious note to the accomplishment. Westbrook yesterday talked about dedicating that performance, that game, being motivated by his love for the friend that he lost this past weekend when Nipsey Hussle was murdered here in Los Angeles. As you can see, here's what Russ had to say about the motivation and the moment. And we cater to sports fans here, but I think we're all attracted to sports in large part because they can be and present some pretty heady moments. Very, very cool that Westbrook was able to find a way to honor his friend and to deal with, obviously, his sorrow through his greatness on the court. That 20-20-20 game in a vacuum, we gave you the numbers, its own level of greatness, but you put it in context, it's a pretty special thing. Before we sign off on the show, do want to say, a little bit of a humble brag here, 1-0, Bills' big bets, they're back. I got to Los Angeles feeling pretty confident. Won last night, told you the Warriors were going to absolutely smoke Denver. They did, so that's 1-0. Tonight I'm looking at Spurs as 5-point dogs, Spurs +5 against the Nuggets in Denver. It's a tough one because the elevation is a real problem for teams that go into Denver. It's one of the most underappreciated home court advantages in the country, and we've seen this year that the Nuggets have been one of the best teams on their home court, fairly mediocre on the road, but they're coming off that beatdown. It is a back-to-back, and I've done these. I've done the Golden State to Denver back-to-back. It's not a pleasant trip to try to pull off with the elevation. They got utterly humiliated. I'm sure their confidence is deflated, and the Spurs are playing for something. It's going to feel again like a playoff game because San Antonio doesn't want to go through what the Nuggets went through last night for 7 games. It'd probably be 4, maybe 5, and play the Warriors in the opening round. I think San Antonio can win this game. They've also, in their last 16, only lost by more than 5 3 times. One of those games was an overtime game. I like the Spurs to keep it close, maybe to win. Spurs +5, an absolute lock. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for being here. I'm off the next few days. Back Monday, Writer's Block, live from Los Angeles, California.